I think if you're playing for one of the big clubs, surely part of your challenge is, and it's hard to win, I get it. When we were winning, it was hard. But you want to be able to compete week in, week out. This United team can't compete. That's the bit that irritates me.
You have to be judged on your league.
That's what it is. Sure. Everybody says it's okay winning the FA.
If United will win the FA Cup and finishing, like if Man City this year, for example, you don't win the league, but you come second or third and you win the FA Cup and go, I get that. You can't win the league every time. But don't go from trying to not winning the league and win the cup to be 14th or 15 and losing 15 league matches.
He has tossed
It's a disgrace.
He's tossed
he has. A disgrace. And the players have. They went to Brentford.
Why can't you play for two competitions?
Exactly. Scully, the biggest shot of the weekend was United going to Brentford. United wouldn't be able to cope with an extra game. Going to Brentford would be physical and it'd be up. And United couldn't cope with that. Man United couldn't cope with a game against fucking Brentford.
They got mind on
something. They're 3-0 up from the first leg.
I think he's missing.
We'll get back to Keano in just a quick second, but remember, if you like this video, please like, share and subscribe. And don't forget to click the notification button so that you know when the next Big D video hits. And as ever, if something is on your mind, if something is bubbling up inside of you that you need to express, please express it in the comments. The Big D reads all of the comments and he's always interested in what is on your mind. Anyway, in this clip, Roy Keane is going to have one of his little rants about Manchester United's league position and how they seem to have given up the ghost in the Premier League in favour of keeping the players fresh and fit for the Europa League. He makes some interesting points, but I'll get to that in just a minute. Stick around for after the clip because the Big D is going to be giving his thoughts on what Keano has to say. Anyway, here's Keano.
What's upset you about United this morning that you're going about in the green room?
Why are so bad they are? Getting on my nerves. They keep talking about a game next week. Oh, we've got a big game next week and they're just not even trying. They should tell it. They've done it by Newcastle as well. You go, well, and Righty made the point a while ago, they have a big second leg. They're 3-0 up. 3-0 up in the first leg.
Yeah, but Roy, can you trust this Man United?
Righty, you're 3-0 up. But they're not at Newcastle. A couple of weeks ago after the match, I went, we couldn't focus on today's game because we got Leon coming up. So you keep writing these matches off. I understand sometimes, obviously, it's a big game for them. So you just dismiss these league matches.
This final's going to be huge, isn't it? I mean, does it make... I mean...
They're a disgrace now, absolute disgrace.
But I'm thinking about United and Tottenham in that final. It's making my stomach go a little bit sickly.
If they get there.
If they get there, there's still a job to do.
But usually, some teams you'd think 3-0, they're definitely going to be
United there.
United are true.
You don't know, though.
Bill Bow just about beat Rangers. Rangers are 300 points behind fucking Celtic. My goodness.
You never know with football.
I'll have a bet with Jay.
Okay.
Who did we have a bet with?
Jilly, I think United...
Trent, you owe me £100 for Trent. You said he might...
Do you think it's definitely going to be United?
You're taking Bilbao, £100. I'd say United.
In vouchers.
For charity. Vouchers.
But what do we make of that? I mean, obviously, Tottenham, I think, might have a bump or two over in their game, but I think United are definitely there. But if that game happens, it's a colossal game. That makes my stomach feel a bit like...
United
it's a great game for both of them.
Yeah.
You think so?
Great game for both of them to try and get the Champions League for the disgraceful league performances.
You know something? That's why they shouldn't win. If you win the Europa League, you shouldn't go in the Champions League.
So Arsene Wenger said...
No, but that's a bit... that's unfair on Spurs and United because that's the rules. But I understand having 6, 7 teams. That's a bit much. I
think we're probably... Sorry. You go. I think you're probably only saying that because where they are in the league.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, but I still think 6 or 7 teams from one country is too many.
I do, yeah, but if you're given that rule...
That's not United's Spurs' fault, I get that.
Exactly.
Yeah, but that doesn't feel
what if United were third? Well, they'd be in it.
No, do you know, I think everyone's saying if United are in it, how big United are, but United are going to be in the Champions League. But that's like, you're talking like a small club, as if they've got no chance of winning it.
It could be embarrassing. Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Well, obviously, the way it's panned out now, they're probably, of course, I get that.
Yeah.
Never get 100%, I get it. It'll be huge for the club. And the format might be they'll probably win 1 or 2 games because whatever the seedings. But in terms of winning it, you're going, so United are going, we have to be in it. They're not talking about winning it. We just have to be in it for financial reasons.
Yeah, what's the money if they get in it? Like, so the winner of, say, Tottenham United...
It's just all the knock-on effect.
It makes difference for
the
players.
Summer, the players, bonuses, it's the whole package.
I think it's 50, 60 million base in it.
Is it?
But even not, it's not just obviously the financial, it's just the package of attracting players and players staying at the club. You go back pre-season, the draw comes out and you're in it. And
Arsene Wenger said no, they should qualify automatically for the Europa League again, but not necessarily for the Champions League, especially when you're in the Premier League where 5 teams qualify.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
I think it's something for UEFA to think about and review.
Yeah.
I agree with him.
Because you could have teams like, say, if Aston Villa don't get there, but then you've got like Man United. You are right about the league placings, isn't it? Really, if you look at the difference in that.
Yeah, to have 5 or 6 teams, it's called a Champions League.
That's the thing. That's the thing. It's just diluting it more and more.
4 teams,
you know, winning the Euro.
But we have
He's right about Arsene Wenger. If you win the Europa League, you go back in. Don't go to the Champions League because this team.
No, but I think that's almost the incentive for smaller teams, right? That they could get in through it's like through the back door. But United lost loads of league games last year. They're losing loads this year. Spurs are the same.
Well, why did they change it to Champions League? They changed the name back then to European Cup, so anyone could be in it.
Do you know something? What I feel is that I do actually agree a little bit with Arsene Wenger, just purely because every game we're watching at the moment, we just talk about the money at stake. Because obviously the league's gone. Liverpool have won the league and the relegation's gone. If you think about it, no one's talking about winning the Europa League to win a trophy. Like the UEFA Cup and the Cup Winners' Cup used to be big trophies that clubs could win, and you used to think, wow, what an achievement. Now, the first thing that you hear after winning in the Europa League is, yeah, you get Champions League qualification, it's a £60 million game.
That's the reward.
And everything now is about a £60 million game, a £100 million game. It's like, actually, the FA Cup has become devalued. You know, competitions, really great competitions are becoming devalued because other
That's come back the last few years, though. The FA Cup, I think, has come back. I think it definitely, the Magic went for a good few years. I think this coming back the last few years.
No, there's been some good games, but I'm just saying that because it hasn't got the financial prize, it doesn't get the same level of sort of what would be probably publicity that the Europa League gets.
So when is all this talk of money really come into the game? Is it more the Champions League, the way it's changed, and then there's been knock-on effect, like when the Championship playoff game is, forget about the glory, it's about how much it's worth to you. Instead of saying, no, it's great for a club to be up there, competing for your supporters.
Once they realised, Roy, that the 4th place, don't remember Arsene Wenger, he said years ago, 4th place is becoming like a trophy.
Yeah.
People went,
well, he was criticised just for qualifying for the Champions League, wasn't it? It's not enough for Arsenal.
And like the thing is that you look back at it, and he was right, because like you're chasing 4th so you can be in there, so you can attract that money.
But you know, when we played, when we were competing, was there money chat when we were playing? I don't remember chats. Obviously, you'd know there'd be bonuses, but we wouldn't be going, lads, this is worth X.
Yeah.
Has that filtered into the players now?
I don't think it has got into the players, other than the fact that the sense that I suspect now they're heavily incentivised to be in the Champions League, so it will make a big difference.
Massive.
So for instance, you heard about United,
right?
And I don't know whether it's true or not. Casemiro's wage or Rashford's wage went down by 20% or 25% if they're not in the Champions League. So you imagine you're on 375 grand a week. You went down to 275 grand a week, which obviously.
No, but I'm on about would we be talking in the dressing room about your own personal bonuses, but what it's worth to the club?
You know what? When we got to the latter stages of like the FA Cup and that, you knew what the bonuses were for that.
Yeah.
Or, you know, like when you get to a certain level, you think, oh, what bonus we? But you don't think about. You're not thinking about it. I wasn't thinking about it.
I felt like West Ham was about the trophy, though. Is it when a team hasn't won for so long?
Newcastle wasn't.
I do. I feel like maybe when
Palace would be.
For those clubs,
it is for some teams, isn't it?
But for those clubs,
United in Europa League, it doesn't feel like it's a trophy, does it? But then you go back, you talk about the Cup Winners' Cup. That felt big for United, wasn't it?
Yeah.
But it's just times, I suppose, isn't it? It feels.
But it's like this trophy, for United, if they get it, it's almost still a failure from last season.
Yeah.
It's like it's a reward.
Wouldn't you accept it as at least a modicum of like success,
like
winning it if they beat them?
Harry Kane.
Do you know something? If you said to me, in your what would be poor times or bad times which United have had, and you're winning 3 and 4 FA Cups and you're winning a Europa League in a 10-year period, some clubs don't win trophies for 50, 60 years, 40 years. Everton, Villa, Tottenham, Newcastle. So for United to win the trophies they've won in the last 5, 6 years, if they're to win this trophy, it's unbelievable, really. So there is still something about United.
What do you mean unbelievable?
Well, Roy, there is still something about United that even though they're having a terrible time, they're awful to watch, they're changing managers, they're finishing 15th in the league, they are in for trophies always. They are in for trophies.
People still talk about
Van Gaal,
Van Gaal, the right trophies.
Van Gaal,
trophies.
I know, but Van Gaal, Mourinho, I get it, but accepting the thing that you can't always have a successful period where you win leagues all the time. That's just life. It's football. It's over 100 and odd years.
We've had this conversation before. I understand that. Obviously, it's hard to win it. But then, so when you're saying you're going to compete for cups, whatever, and go back to United in the 80s, whatever, but then but you're also then on one hand going, well, you can't win the league, so it's okay to be 15th.
Oh no, that's no good.
That's not right.
But to win trophy should never. I don't think it should be disrespected winning a trophy.
I think if you're playing for one of the big clubs, surely part of your challenge is, and it's hard to win. I get it. When we were winning, it was hard. But you want to be able to compete week in, week out. This United team can't compete. That's the bit that irritates me.
You have to be judged on your league.
That's what it is.
Sure.
Everybody says that. It's okay winning the FA.
If United will win the FA Cup and finish in, like, if Man City this year, for example, you don't win the league, but you come second or third and you win the FA Cup and go, yeah, do you know what, I get that. You can't win the league every time. But don't go from trying to not win the league and win the cup to be 14th or 15 and losing 15 league matches.
He has tossed.
It's a disgrace.
He's tossed
he has.
Off, hasn't he?
A disgrace. And the players have. They went to Brentford.
Why can't you play for 2 competitions?
Exactly. Scully. The biggest shot of the weekend was United going to Brentford. United wouldn't be able to cope with an extra game. Going to Brentford would be physical and it'd be up. And United couldn't cope with that. Man, United couldn't cope with a game against fucking Brentford.
They got mine on
They're 3-0 up from the first leg.
I think he's missing a trick for next season as well, because he's got to try and find somehow to win games in the Premier League.
So what happens next year if the Champions League? If the league match, we can't because we got PSG. And you can't focus on this league game.
He might sign 4 or 5 players this year, and they might have injuries next year, and he might still be with a team that he doesn't like. But he's got to find a way to win games.
There's always an excuse. We had Spurs a few months ago. Managers come up with stuff going, when I get all my best players back, or United at the moment, we make changes. And then you keep losing football matches when you have... So you find an excuse. Too many demands. Next year, we might be in too many competitions. Our squad can't cope with it. So now you're focusing on one trophy. Your mindset can only concentrate on one.
Well, that's the situation they find themselves in.
You're the manager of United now, and you know pretty much that this season, you'd have to prioritise the Europa League if you were Ruben Amorim. You'd have to, wouldn't you?
I'm not saying that, Gary. But it doesn't mean you can't win the odd league match. They
I
went to Newcastle the second. After the match, all the noise is coming out of the United after Newcastle. I'm going back 3 or 4 weeks. We couldn't focus on this game today. I think they had Leon coming up. They had again the other day, but we can't focus on Brentford because we got to say. So what is you just dismiss these matches?
Yeah.
What about
I think the thing is, it's like they're not trying to win.
Well, the wrong thing is 75,000 people go to watch you at Wolves at home against Wolves at home and you lose.
Wolves is a good example.
That could be the kid's first game that's watching United for the first time, and Wolves at home you lose 1-0. That's not.
There's loads, Nev. There's loads of games.
But they're not the only club that are doing that at this moment in time. By the way, I mean Arsenal.
It's Man United, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. But Arsenal are doing that, I think, to an extent. I mean,
Roy does have a fair point. Why can't the players perform week in, week out, regardless if they're going to win the league or not? Where's the sort of personal pride of just competing and winning football matches and things of that nature? I get it. But I can't help but think that Roy is just a little bit oversimplistic for his own good in terms of his viewpoints, so to speak. Because, he's right. Players should be competitive at all times. They're getting well paid. They should be doing that. But you've got to factor in human nature. And not everyone is like Roy Keane. And when you're playing sport at the highest level, I haven't actually played sport at the highest level personally, but I have acted at the highest level. So there is some kind of similarity there. And from my time as an actor, which I still am an actor, I'm more up for auditions that are worth more than others. So for instance, what I mean is, if I'm up for a big film with Tom Cruise, say, I'm going to be well up for that audition. And I've had auditions with a film with Tom Cruise before, quite recently in fact. But then again, if I'm just up for some commercial that, I'm not really bothered about, the money's not great and it's just some weird product I'm just not bothered about, then it is actually quite difficult to get motivated for that kind of thing. So I imagine it's the same kind of thing when it comes to football. If you're competing in a competition that you've got a chance to win, then you're going to have that extra 10% motivation that's going to hopefully get you across the line. Whereas if you're in a competition where you've got nothing to play for, like the league, with Man United at this point, they're not going to qualify for Europe in the league, they're not going to win the league, and they're not going to get relegated. So basically, United have been playing friendlies for the past couple of weeks, or however long it's been. So it's going to take that sort of extra edge off. Now, also bear in mind, the teams that they play against, they're also going to have the sort of Man United 10%, because anytime a team plays against Manchester United, they're going to have that extra 10% because it's Man United and they want to beat Man United and they want to be able to say that they beat Man United at the weekend, kind of thing. But also, like the smaller teams, they're fighting for, they might be fighting for relegation, or they might be fighting for a little bit of, they maybe get a little bit more money by finishing higher up in the league or something like that. And that little bit more money actually means a lot more to them than it does to Man United. So there's those components that sort of you need to take into account as well. And by the way, Paul Scholes, this particular clip just kind of illustrates that Paul's just a little bit thick. God bless him. I know that you're saying that it's not right that a team finishing 15th, if they win the Europa League, they get in the Champions League. But what about if they finish third? Well, they would qualify for the Champions League. He did correct himself, to be fair, very quickly. But that was a little bit dumb. But that's all right. That's Paulie Scholes. And again, it's these little... it's these little things that just kind of highlight why Roy didn't really make it as a manager and why Paul Scholes' managerial career crashed and burned very quickly. It's very easy to be a very talented footballer because all you need to do is put the effort in. And if you put the effort in and you're as talented as which Roy Keane and Paul Scholes did for Man United, if you put the effort in, then everything just falls into place. That's it. It just falls into place. And Paul Scholes and Roy Keane, they've never really been in this unique situation that Man United have been in before. They were always fighting for a league title. So it's difficult for them to comment on this without being biased, I would argue. But you've kind of got to, if you're a manager, you've got to manage your resources. You've got to be pragmatic. And Ruben Amorim knows how crucial it is for Man United to win the Europa League and qualify for the Champions League. Because one, it cements his authority on that team. It also allows Manchester United to attract higher caliber players that's going to improve his team. And he's going to have a little bit more sort of leverage with the board because he's won a trophy despite the horrific state that the club's been in for the past 6 to 8 months or 12 months or whatever. And he's still managed to win a trophy despite that. So I don't blame him. I kind of like the fact that he has been pragmatic in his approach to the league games. In the run into sort of the Europa League final, and I mean we had a game today. I mean this clip is from a few days ago before, and it's Sunday today. I'm making this clip, and United got beat today, and Lenny Yoro got injured. We played quite a strong team, and Lenny Yoro got injured. Now, how serious that injury is, I don't know. I don't know at this point. But if he's injured for the rest of the season, he's not going to be playing in the Europa League final. And he's been fantastic lately. So the team's going to be weaker just because we were fighting for 3 points in the league where we can't... That's meaningless. So that's potentially weakened United for the Europa League final. And see, that's the difference between a good manager and a not so good manager. The good manager always looks at the bigger picture. Always, always, always looks at the bigger picture. If Roy Keane was managing Man United, he'd be playing a full-strength side consistently all the time. And then who knows who else would get injured? Bruno would probably get injured. And then he would twine that we didn't have Bruno, even though he's been twining about him for the past 6 months. And Gary Neville does make an excellent point. We're still winning trophies. Man United's worst ever era for a long time, and we're still winning trophies. So that's good. So let's keep on winning trophies. And, I do sympathise with what they were discussing there a little bit in terms of I miss the old Cup Winners' Cup, and I never saw United win the old UEFA Cup. Obviously, they won the Europa League, but the Europa League is the old Cup Winners' Cup and the UEFA Cup combined. But those two trophies did seem like big trophies back in the day, and you had to be good to win them, to be fair. And they weren't as big as the European Cup, the old European Cup, or the Champions League before it became, 4 teams from each country playing in it. And I agree with Righty, they shouldn't call it the Champions League because it's not the Champions League. So the old Cup Winners' Cup and the UEFA Cup, they were good consolations, and you used to get some good sides in there because, especially say in Italy, Juventus might win the league one year, and that's fair enough, but you still had AC Milan who won the league the year before. So you had, title contending teams playing in these lesser tournaments because they might have won a cup, or they might have come second or third, or whatever. So, but I'm a little, the Big D's a little bit of a traditionalist, and you can tell that those guys are as well. But it's not United's fault. It's not United's fault, and I don't see why not. Why the winner of the Europa League doesn't qualify for the Champions League? Why not? At the end of the day, whoever wins the Europa League has won a competition. So they've got more right to be in the Champions League than any team that finishes second, third or fourth. Regardless of where they finished in the league. It almost doesn't matter. Because they won a competition to qualify. So you could argue that Man United have got just as much right to being in the Champions League, or Spurs, if they win. God forbid they do. You could argue that they've got more of a right of being in, or just as much of a right of being in the Champions League as, say, Liverpool for winning the league. Because those two teams have won a competition. But anyway, what do you guys think? Is Roy Keane off the mark? Is he just too much of a traditionalist? Can he not see the woods for the trees? You tell me. Thoughts in the comments, and the Big D will see you in the next one.